All right, welcome divas and dudes to Powerhouse Bakery and our Powerhouse Cooking School. We are just finishing up our visit through Italy of the Mediterranean. And so you can see I've got so many beautiful things out on the table. For the 2 recipes today, I gave you the copy, so make sure you get to follow along with us. We've got 2 really interesting dishes, actually 3, but 2 primaries. The very top will be the bolognese, and this is, of course, made from lentils, and it's gonna really be treated like a meat alternative, which I'm super excited to show you how that'll work. And then the next one is Cacio e Pepe, which is, anybody remember what that is in English, what that Spanish name is? You can probably guess by looking at the ingredients. It's cheese and salt. Cheese and pepper, excuse me. And so it's a really simple and lovely dish that is a healthy way to do what we think of as being a decadent that, you know, we don't ever allow ourselves, is pasta and cheese. And so it's a really fun one. And then the last one, the classic Italian lentils. And so I have already cooked the lentils, but just remember that they cook in about 45 minutes. But with our 1 hour, I cheated and I added that step on my own. But it also just talks about, and then in the instructions, that you can pre-cook them. So the fun thing is we have some beautiful ingredients. The traditional Italian process of cooking lentils is fun because they actually use a skillet more often than just cooking them in a pot. I've seen recipes going both ways, but that's why I have my skillet set up here. And then I've got my water boiling because I'm going to drop the pasta in. I'm going to warm it up. I've already started it. And so again, this is a great technique for doing batch cooking at home. You can start the ingredients. So I've got the pasta already cooked about 90%, and I'm going to drop it in because the water for the pasta is actually part of the recipe. You need to have a little bit of extra water to make this creamy, lovely sauce. So just know that it's going to be built in the pot, which I love. It's going to be something that you warm up with the hot water. The pasta gets cooked. You drain most of the water. You keep 3/4 of it, 3/4 of a cup, and then you just mix it in the bowl. So you add butter and you add the cheese, and it becomes this wonderful 1-dish meal. Same thing with the lentils. Everything can be done in the pot. So even if you didn't pre-cook your lentils, you could cook them in your skillet and really have a wonderful dish that is just evolving from one dish. So I love that. So before we get really into the cooking, I want to show you some key ingredients. I love this brand of green lentils, organic. I think it's worth it. You know, when we think of this being our meat replacement, your typical lentils are going to be about under $2. It's like $1.70, I think, $1.60. And this is an extra dollar, so $2.60. So sometimes it seems like there is a HEB, both come from HEB. And so I don't want you to freak out and think, gosh, $1 extra, I'm not buying that. In the scheme of things, when we're using this as a meat alternative, it's still incredibly cost effective to buy a really good quality ingredient. And remember, one thing I love about the Italian cooking is that quality ingredients are always really important. It's not to say that these are bad, but we just want to make sure that wherever we can, we just go from good to great. So it's kind of a nice example. Another item I want to show you is this great way to use tomato paste. So I have 2 on my table, and instead of opening the little jar, and how often have you opened up a jar of tomato paste and you only use a scoop and then you're like, okay, what do I do with that? Yay! This is a perfect option. This one I haven't opened yet because I wanted to show you. The top of the lid just snaps right in there and it opens the metal. and it's great. I use these all the time at home, because so then if you want a tablespoon or two of tomato paste, you've got it. And so these two brands are very similar. They're both equally good. Oh, actually, they're the same brand. This one just has a little different profile. I think it's got a little other veggies in there. So pure tomato paste and some onion and probably a little bit of extra flavors. But for the most part, it's a great way to substitute out your Yes, I just went shopping this morning, and everything here is what I shopped for. And I went to H-E-B and got it all. So, of course, we've got our garlic cloves, and I really encourage you not to ever use a jarred garlic. Always use fresh. It's just the way to go. I got this beautiful new olive oil decanter, which I love. And so we can put it right into the skillet, and it pops out. Yeah, there we go. I should have practiced it. The one that I have at home is a much faster drizzle, but it's nice because it just really lets you control how much you got in there. Something I love about Italian cooking is they use olive oil as a secondary or a final add-in. And so, yes, we use it for cooking, and then we also get to use it for the final product. So really nice. And then my salt I always use in a little bowl so I can do pinch. Remember I mentioned last week, Italian chefs, even if they're, very experienced and even famous, they still use a pinch of salt. And so it's nice to be able to use it this way. And then, of course, a really good quality pepper mill. And, of course, you can open them different ways and refill them. This one you just fill in from the top. And you want to turn both directions so it gets the blade sharpened in both ways. So I love having a good quality pepper grinder right handy to go. And then I have a couple of add-ins. So this is a beautiful kale. Anybody ever use this one? So nice. And it's very easy to take the center stem out. So I'm just going to hold the center and pull it out. And same thing with the rest. So we can use the tough stem, but it's a little bit tough. So if I use it, I'll probably be most likely to use it in stock. But even in a veggie stock, it's pretty strong flavor. So, just use it sparingly. And so, again, this is fresh. I just bought it today. It also massages really well into a kale salad. So I love it. Today I'm going to add it into our lentils. One way that you can vary the bolognese is instead of creating it like a sauce, you can turn it into a soup. So a lentil soup is a variation that you can just use for this recipe. Because the nice thing is, once you get these lentils going, they are so versatile. They start very similarly. We're going to start with herbs and the garlic. So you've got 3 different herbs here: thyme, rosemary, and bay leaf. And so those are going to go in to the lentils as we cook them. Now I've already cooked them, but I did add bay leaf. I just didn't add all of the other items. So we're going to get to that. I'm ready now. We are going to put our pasta in. So this is a gluten-free pasta. And again, I just partially cooked it because I knew I wanted to get it warmed up. So I'm just going to let it get wet in there and a little bit more cooked. The gluten-free pasta is a little difficult sometimes to cook. I mentioned this last time when we were working with it. You just have to try a piece and taste it and see if it's the texture that you're happy with. It sometimes works just beautifully, and other times it gets mushy. So often when I have people that are just learning about gluten-free and they hate the pasta that is, free of wheat, I assure them that give it another try, because it'll probably be just a matter of cooking it a little more or a little less. Okay, so that is looking good. I'm going to increase my temperature a little more, because this is going to be where I build my beautiful pasta. And now that we have Linda here, Linda, will you help us say it correctly? The pasta, and it's is it a soft C or a hard C for Cacio or Cacio e Pepe? The second recipe. Say it louder. Cacio. Gotcha. Cacio e Pepe. Fantastic. No, just leave it. We'll catch you later. Yeah. So it is a hard C. So Cacio e Pepe. I love that. Okay, I wasn't exactly sure, so we had the expert clear up that. Beautiful. Okay, so my pasta is getting nice and warm. I have about a quarter cup, I'm sorry, 3/4 of a cup of water left in there. So that's just about right. And now if you look at your recipe, how much butter do I get to put into my pasta? My butter. I'm going to read your recipe. Is it 2 tablespoons? 3 tablespoons. Yes. So here is my butter. I'm going to drop that in. And I'm going to do the third one. See, my lower fat brain saw that 3 and made it a 2. Certainly not 3. No, that's okay. And again, using unsalted butter is fine. Here at the bakery, we use unsalted butter all the time. At home, I use salted. So lots of ways to vary it. Some people like the higher fat butters. Anybody use the Kerrygold or some of the other versions? Yeah. Not a big difference, especially in the cooking process. All the time. Yes, all the time at home. And I love it. The Earth Balance vegan butter is lovely, especially if, not only if you want to be dairy free, but if sometimes butter bothers your tummy, it's a great variation. So see, that little bit of water in there is melting my butter perfectly. And now on to the most beautiful parts, the cheeses. So read for me, how much cheese do I get to put in? I've got the Parmigiano Reggiano. 1/3 of a cup. All right. It is exactly like Parmesan. It's just a fancy name. Yes. It's so interesting. I don't know that I would describe it as sweet, but I can see what you're searching for, a good description of this cheese, and it's very aromatic. Now the other cheese, describe how do you pronounce this one? If you say it again, pecorino. So again, hard C, not soft C. And so this is a new one for me. I've used Parmigiano Reggiano a lot. This one I grated a little bit finer. And how much do I get of this one?
1/3.
Gotcha. So same amount. Same amount. Of the what? Yes, because so often you put in as much as you want. The Parmigiano Reggiano, we'll always add in a little extra. And so here we go. Oh, can you start to smell it now? Oh my goodness. So it's just looking gorgeous. I'm going to let it get nice and creamy. And so, God gift, if you want to add in the 1/3 of a cup, you can under the Parmigiano Reggiano. It's the same amount of each cheese. So now I'm going to bring up the heat just a little bit, and we're just going to let it get a little bit thick. Yes, that looks beautiful. Are you starting to smell it?
Yes.
Amazing, right?
Can I ask another question? On the pasta, is it a choice for you to use gluten-free or?
Oh, sure. Of course. You can use any kind you want. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more of my Parmesan. And I'm going to let it sit. It's got to thicken up just a little bit. But can you see that? It's getting beautiful.
When do you add your pepper?
Just as I get ready to serve it. Yes, yes. Absolutely gorgeous. And so I will put it in here at this stage. I'm also going to add a little bit of beautiful greens. So I could add a little bit of parsley. Other add-ins that would be lovely would be spinach. What other greens do you think we could add in? Yeah, we could even add arugula, basil. So many options. Yeah, I don't like how that goes so slow, huh? Yes. I like those much better. It's the only kind they had for me at HEB this morning because we lost our other one. So, okay, I'm gonna let it sit. See, it's bubbling away. It's gonna get some of that juice reduced. and it is going to be absolutely fabulous. Okay, so now my next one, I'm going to move right over to this spot and heat up a little bit. So usually about medium heat, medium high. I'm going to add in my lentils. So now go to the top recipe, the bolognese. And you'll see that we start with, go ahead and read to me. What do you see on there? Right, so we're going to saute. I'm going to let this sit. We're going to saute the veggies. And this is where I saw a lot of variation in the expert cooks that I watched. Some will start with the very small chopped veggie. I've got carrots, I've got onion, parsley. And Miss Bo, I think I didn't bring my celery. Would you mind bringing that to me? It should be still on the table over there. There we go. I'll turn this one off. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so let's start with our sauté veg. And if you're looking at the bolognese recipe, how much of the celery? Sorry? 2 stalks. I have 3 stalks in here, so I'm going to just do about, I'm going to call that about a half of a cup. You can see that in there, about a half a cup. I've got a nice sizzle going, and I'm going to start using my wooden spoon. And these are great. If you don't already have wooden spoons in your kitchen, they're disposable practically, but make sure you use them as often as you can. It makes it so easy on your cooking tools, but especially your skillet. All right. Now I'm going to drop in my bay leaf and my thyme. I think I'm going to take it off the stem too. If you have thyme growing in your garden, there's so many different varieties. And this one variety I really like because it's so easy. I'm going to tip off the top and then just run my fingernail across it, and you get all those beautiful, delicate leaves in there, and you don't have to worry about the big stems. Oh boy, you smelling it? So good. So a couple of the recipes for the bolognese that I found, they suggested adding soy sauce, and I just didn't want to go that route. It just felt wrong to put soy sauce in an Italian dish. But his comment was that it really needed more flavor. And I thought, well, holy cow, you got all these things. Why just not use more of these? So the rosemary, we don't want it to really, we don't want to eat it. So I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to get the flavors all mixed in. So I did take off the thyme leaves because we can eat those, but we don't really want to eat the bay leaf or the rosemary. So now I'm going to add in the rest of my veggies. Let's go ahead and do the onion next. It calls for 1 onion, so that's about right. And then carrot. I love that it uses carrot. You know, in my kitchen, I've just kind of gotten out of the habit of using carrot as a flavor vehicle. We think of it as being maybe a vegetable to eat, but not really a flavor vehicle. So I love the fact that some of the chefs I was following use it. This one little lady that was a grandma, she couldn't even speak English. She had an interpreter. She commented on how important getting all of these flavors in the beginning of your saute. So it's called a sofrito, even when it's not a tomato base originally. This is too small for me. I had to give up. Yeah, right? It's like, no, that's not going to work. There we go. These are looking so pretty. So I'm going to let that sizzle away. You know, the instructions often said 3 or 4 minutes for cooking the vegetables. So they really are expecting them to cook fast and cook well. All right, while we're letting that work, I'm going to pass around, with Bo's help, some pasta. Oh, this smells so good. Looks like I might have left too much moisture in there because it's kind of falling off of them. But that looks so pretty. And we'll put a little bit of cheese on as you're serving. So if you want to work right here, and you can use the tongs. Yes. And I was going to do a little bit of garnish with the tomato. There we go. And your parsley. Just to make it pretty, because we know that the eyes eat first. There we go. And then a little cheese on as you're serving it around. Okay, so that is gorgeous. And I'm going to empty this. So now I can heat up my lentils as I go. The nice thing is when you get the lentils already cooked, thank you, ma'am. It's just really a matter of heating them up. But I also want to get all of those fantastic flavors mixed in too. Yes, so this was just my lentils cooked in water. Yes, they are already cooked. So I'm going to put some in my pot here. Because again, I've got 2 lentil recipes I want to show you. And see, they're already pretty soft. So if we're not careful, they're going to overcook. So again, if you cooked it all at once, which is how I did this recipe the first time through, I just cooked my lentils in the skillet and it was really nice. For time, I'm kind of doing a shortcut. All right, so that's warming up. And now we can cook this one. So we're also going to add a little bit of red wine. It's a third of a cup. And we're going to get ready to add in our tomato paste. So you can use red wine or white wine. I know they gave us 2 options. So now watch this. I'm just going to squeeze it right into the center. Oh, it smells amazing. So at this stage, I haven't added any salt. Yeah. Oh, this is the beautiful tomato paste. In fact, we can pass it around or you guys can grab it anytime you want to look at it. Okay. So about 2 more minutes and I'm going to pull the rosemary out. Because I just want to get all the essential oils. When you get a nice fresh rosemary like this one, there's a lot of volatile oils in it. And so it's really quick to get all those wonderful flavors. Yes, true. All right, so now I'm going to add my lentils right into my skillet. So again, I've just cut out about 40 minutes of the cooking time. Another interesting secondary ingredient in this bolognese is as you look through, I'm going to be shredding some mushrooms in just a minute, which is kind of fun and different. And then this one's going to use quite a bit more tomato puree and the soy milk. So I love the fact that a milk is added in, and usually the milk is something that's added for tenderizing the meat in a bolognese. Never heard of that. You can use a dairy milk or you can use a non-dairy, which is what we're using today. So look how pretty that's going to be.
It calls for 24 ounces of tomato puree.
Yes, and so I'm using the concentrate, so I can use a lot less. So I'm just doing a little bit at a time, and my red wine is going to add the liquid, and then I also have some broth. So I'm just letting those saute together. So,
May I ask another question?
yeah.
When you're using the paste, I know you're using the paste right now.
Uh-huh.
About what amount you use? 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons, or?
So far I've added 2.5 tablespoons. But you can use, just as the recipe calls for, you can do it exactly like that. Since I wanted to show you this great product of the tomato paste, I like it because it's less harsh of a tomato flavor. So now my rosemary is coming out. And I'm going to leave my bay leaf in a little bit longer, and I'm going to add a couple more pieces of my fresh, beautiful thyme. All right. Okay, so are you tasting the pasta? Yeah, good. How can you go wrong with pasta and cheese? Right? Did it need salt? Yeah? Good. Oh, I'm so glad. I do think that that's a trick, and it just takes some practice to get that, because this pasta, of course, is made with lentils as well, so it's one of those unusual gluten-free options. We used to get a brown rice for Powerhouse Bakery, and it's been very hard to get lately. Okay. Yes, that's looking beautiful. So now I'm just slowly adding up to the amounts in your recipe. I'm letting those cook down just a little bit more. Add my garlic next. So remember, I'm not a fan of adding garlic in too early. I like it to be really delicately cooked. And so we've got the carrots and onion in there. We don't have the garlic. So I'm going to mash it with the back of my knife, and then I'm going to chop it. See, I'm going to put this guy right here. So from our last class, did anybody go buy themselves a fancy new 8-inch knife? You already do. Good. I left my good one at home, but sometimes a longer knife is great too. It really helps in cutting up large amounts of onion and celery, so it definitely works. All right, here comes my onion. I'm sorry, my garlic. And I'm going to go a little bit more on my broth. So again, the bolognese is going to be a sauce. How much broth did the recipe call for? Yeah. Got it. See, it's just looking beautiful. Oh, just wait. You can top the pasta with it. We're going to, again, we're showing you an option of the soup as well as the bolognese. So if we had some tiny star pasta, we could add that in and make it like a soup. If we had long noodles like a tagliarini, we could use it as a sauce. Now in a couple more minutes, I'm going to use my immersion blender and break it down a little bit. But I still want to let that cook just a little bit more, because I think it's going to be beautiful as it cooks down and gets all those flavors. Another couple minutes, I'm going to pull out my bay leaves. If you don't already have a bay leaf growing in your garden, please do. They are so fabulous in so many dishes. I'm going to add my pinch of salt. And always salt to taste. So I know my team added salt when they prepared the lentils, so I'm always extra conservative on how much we want to put in. Okay, I think we need just our last little bit of our tomato paste. Another teaspoon and a half. So again, you could use a tomato puree. It just makes it a lot more tomato-y. And so in this version, I wanted to show you variation. But that recipe that I wrote out for you, if you followed all those exact proportions and you cooked your lentils from the ground up, it would be perfect. I've made that one at home. This is a little variation. All right, that's looking great. Now on my next one, now we've got our lentils here.
You still have one ingredient missing on this one. The mushroom.
Yes, exactly. These guys are warming up beautifully. I'm just checking on those babies. Now this is new for me. Shredding mushrooms. So cool. Anybody shred mushrooms? I know. But the whole idea is we're going to add the mushrooms in, and it's going to add to the texture. It's going to make it a little bit meatier. And so I just think it's a great variation here. I'm going to move this so you can see. We are just shredding. No, you could use the plain white ones. Isn't this just fabulous? Yeah, and it cooks really quickly. Okay, there we go. I'm going to do about 4 of them. Add them right in. Gosh, it almost has a texture of cheese, doesn't it? I was just thinking that. I'm going to take out this little hunk and I'll chop those. Let's do maybe 4 of them. It gives you the metric and, of course, the ounces on the recipe. But what's so nice is when you're working with these cooked lentils, you can just adjust as you go. And so I've got all the mise en place, and then I'm adjusting as I go based on the texture that I want, and of course the flavor profile. I've got my tomatoes that I'm going to add in too in just a minute. I love doing some fresh tomatoes. Okay. Look at this. Ooh, so pretty. And here comes some tomatoes. Look at how beautiful this is turning out. The carrots now are getting nice and soft. The mushrooms are adding a density to the whole mixture. Yeah, that's fabulous. So now, you remember my immersion blender from last week? Anybody use one of these at home? Share with me some of the things you do with it. Soup? Yes. And what? Hot sauce. Sure. That's a fantastic point. Absolutely. And so, you know, what's nice about these is the end comes off and you can put it in the dishwasher. I have been hand washing mine, but you just make sure that you keep the blade nice and clean. Turn it on once you get it into the product. You guys remember last week, I almost didn't do that fast enough and I tried to make a mess. Not yet. You know, the bay leaf is so easy to find. It's the rosemary that I have issue with. So I always get that one out as soon as possible. But I'm going to leave that bay leaf in just a little bit longer. All right, so in. So it's just adding a little bit of creaminess to my overall texture. And really the lentils start looking like more of a ground meat feel. And it just gives it this beautiful look. You could also, if you wanted your mushrooms to cook down more, you could certainly add them into the beginning of the saute. I kind of like seeing them though. All right, that's good. So to me, this is easily also a soup. We could really add this with some rice and make it a beautiful lentil soup. I'm going to let this simmer just a little bit more before we get our samples. And I'm going to go on to this one. Now this one I've been warming up. And we are going to add in our kale and a little bit more garlic. Again, this is a fabulous way just to dress up some lentils. It could be a soup. It could be the original Italian style lentils that are just really dressed in herbs. That's the trick. The classic lentils for good luck are just lightly dressed with herbs, rosemary, bay leaf, and thyme. And then they are served with just some crostini with sausage. So share with me, those of you that are of Italian descent, have you done a New Year's Eve celebration with lentils? Yes, Linda? There's a special sausage that's talked about. Can you tell us, have you ever had it? Oh, you don't? Ah, yes. Yeah. Not a fan. Oh, you do? Okay. So if you were to share some of the other traditions that are done for New Year's, other than the lentils, what other things does the Italian culture like to do? Oh, yes. Like the seven fishes. Yes. Gotcha. So cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this one too, so you can kind of see the difference in the quality. This one had a little bit of other vegetables in it. I'll go ahead and pass it around so you can see the ingredients there. And now I'm making the soup on this side with the traditional lentil base. Saute the veggies first, and then I've added in the kale, and I'm gonna add in some more garlic here in just a minute. And oh, our bolognese is starting to look so pretty. Lots of color. You can see the tomato and onion in here. I just love it. So if you've made a traditional bolognese, it's oftentimes with beef. Any of our Italians want to share how they've done bolognese? It's absolutely fabulous. Yes, it's coming up. So just at the end, we're going to add in a little bit of soy milk. We could have added a little more water or broth if we wanted, but I'm actually really happy with the texture. See, that just looks so pretty. And I've honestly never added soy milk to lentils, but I have used coconut milk before to add richness. And so it's just one of those things where it's slightly different, and we're going to see how it makes a different type of flavor profile. Is it 1/3 of a cup?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so this is unsweetened organic soy milk, and it's going in. And of course, I've saved a little bit of our cheese because the beautiful two cheeses that we're celebrating today will go so beautifully on our bolognese. So you could serve this with crostini. Of course, you could do pasta. The couple of the chefs that I followed use a homemade thick tagliarini, and it really holds the sauce beautifully. And so that's, I think, such a fun approach. So there it is. So pretty. Okay, so now I'm working on my stew. That one does not call for soy milk. And I'm going to add in a little bit of parsley just to finish this off. I love to add in some fresh at the very end just to give it that pop of color. I did. Yes. Should we put a little more in just in case? I think so. I mean, we bought the whole bottle. You know, when my dad used to make Italian food, and he always loved to have the extra wine at the very end. Some for him, some for the pot. But yeah, oh, that looks so pretty. Right? Nice. All right. So now I'm doing my soup on this side. I think I'm just going to make it a little bit more since I've got a good amount of lentils, and I want to make sure everybody gets plenty to try. So I'm just going to add a little bit more to it. So remember, when you're starting with lentils, you do not have to soak them. It is a good idea to rinse them. There is sometimes little pebbles in the container. I've never found a pebble, but there's always that first chance. You don't want to have to bite onto one. I'm just about finished, so now I'm going to add my last little bit of fresh garlic. So again, I'm going to press it with my knife and a fine mince. I have a lot of extra mushrooms here. I might even just throw those in. I know somebody asked about a garlic press, and I'm wondering anybody want to share? If you use a garlic press, are you able to get all the little parts out? Yeah, so it comes out nicely. Good, good, good. Okay, just a little bit more to finish off here, and of course in my soup. All right, this one's coming along beautifully, and I think we are ready to turn this one off. There we have it. Look at that. Now again, if we use the full amount of the recipe and a higher ratio of tomato, it might be a little bit more red, but not much. This is just the right color. So I think we got our ratios right on. So beautiful. All right, so I'm gonna let that cool and then we will serve it up. And now in our last few minutes, I'm gonna finish up this beautiful lentil stew. Yes. Yes. And you know what? It looks like a lot, but gosh, my husband and I have lentils several times a week. And, you know, if you each have a cup, you'd probably get 6 servings out of this. So, yeah, you know, with your 2, you and your hubby, you might freeze some, but it's such great leftovers. And so often it's better the next day. And so you might not freeze this amount. You might not have to. Right, exactly. All right, so let's serve up. If you don't mind giving me a quick rinse, Miss Bo, and then we will put this one in. Okay, so now I'm going to finish up this one. I'm going to add a little bit more fresh chopped tomato. I love the bright color that it gives us. And I'm going to add in some more of the herbs. Now, last time I used a beefy tomato, the Roma, and this time I bought some beautiful organic little mini tomatoes. I don't remember what brand this is or what variety, but they just look so beautiful when they come in on the stem, and they just have a lot more juice in them. So they're a lot of wetter tomato. But again, I think that's a good thing when you're working in a soup. So we want plenty of good tomato color, the freshness. We could even add a little touch of lemon juice at the end. It always adds a little touch of that fresh kick. But this is going to go into my lentils that I'm cooking more like a soup. Thank you, ma'am. All right, let's see. Yeah, that's perfect right there. Excellent. Here it goes. Yeah, you guide it for me. Thank you. That looks so pretty. It does. Yeah, there you go. And so then we're going to add a little bit of fresh ground pepper and a pinch of salt. And he's going to fall right in there, and that's okay. We can pull him out. There we go. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, your plates should be heavy enough. Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of fresh ground pepper and a pinch of salt. Love this pepper grinder. It really grabs the kernels. Little bit of olive oil at the end, just like they do in Italy, right? And little pinch of... Sorry? Yeah, please. Okay. Uh-oh, did we get a bee in here? Thank you, ma'am. All right. Let's let it cool for just a minute because I don't want it to burn anybody. And so now I'm going to move. We really do have a bee in here. Look, buddy. Look, buddy, you're not invited. Right? I'm going to move it right into my skillet. Just because I love the way the skillet is cooking them. I'm going to go ahead and finish off our beautiful, again, the original style of lentils is cooked open. It has a great mix of ingredients, but it always starts with the herbs. And so then I added in some extra add-ins like the kale, and I'm going to pull out my rosemary. Just a little bit easier to work with, I think, in a skillet. And honestly, I'd never really cooked lentils in a skillet before, and now I'm hooked. It's just so nice. You can really see what you've got. It gets even cooking. Yeah, this is beautiful. Okay, and I'm adding my last little bit of tomato paste. Yeah, interesting. This one is a lot more tomato-y. triple concentrated. It does not have added other vegetables. The one I'm passing around has a little different texture. So that's very interesting. Yep, I think you're right, Rachel. And it really makes a difference in the color and the whole quality. So yeah, I love that. I'm going to add a little bit more of our beautiful thyme. So where would you see having lentils in your routine? Would you see having it at lunch or at dinner? How could you imagine making it part of your routine? Yeah, anywhere, huh? Well, at Powerhouse Bakery, we're getting ready to do our beet burgers, and there's lentils. Oftentimes we can make a burger with lentils as well. The beet and lentil burger is the one that we do, and it's so beautiful. And it's got all these same flavors, and it's just a fantastic way to get your protein and complex carbohydrates. When we think about it, the protein needs that we have are really around 47 to 57 men and women. So grams per day, 47 to 57 is quite low, lower than what we maybe had thought of as an athlete. So nice thing that lentils give you about 12 grams of protein per cup. That's a hefty part of your day. If you had some high grain cereal in the morning, like oatmeal or Ezekiel toast, maybe an egg, so there's another 14 grams of protein, and then you had your lentils, and you could certainly do a meat dish at night and easily round up to your goal of 40. So that is looking so pretty. All right, so I think we are ready to put in our tomatoes. I'm giving them kind of a rough chop. I love to see fresh chunks in there, so this is going to go in. Oh, sure. You could use the aromas. Yeah, I just love the way this looks. It's just really pretty. And I'm going to add in some fresh parsley. And of course, we could use some of those beautiful cheeses, I think, in these lentil dishes. A lot of the chefs, I mean, I never saw them do that per se, that the lentils are seasoned more with olive oil, but I bet we could Americanize that and add some cheese to it, and it would be so beautiful. All right, a little bit of parsley, and we are ready to go. Last little bit of olive oil. Take that guy off. So that was about 2 tablespoons I just drizzled in there. And that was the first amount of olive oil we've added. The veggies I didn't saute in much oil at all. Some of the chefs talk about doing a dry saute. So remember, we've talked about that in the past too. Without adding oil to your skillet, you just saute the vegetables and let the natural moisture of the vegetables really cook. And that's such an easy way to not only keep the total calories down of your dish, but it really gives it a different flavor. All right, that's my last little bit of rosemary. Tell me what you're smelling right now. Can you describe the flavors? You smell garlic, rosemary. I know the mask just doesn't do it justice, right? Yes. I left the kale kind of on the large side so you can eat around it if you don't want it, especially when we serve them up. So the difference is in the bolognese, I'll go ahead and turn this off now. I think we're good. The difference in the bolognese is that we have the mushrooms, we have a lot more veggie, the carrots, the celery, and the onions, and it still had the same spice blend, garlic, rosemary, thyme, and bay. And then this one has the kale, much fewer vegetables, and a little bit denser. And so again, it's a really fun way to get a variety of the lentils and still getting lots of protein and versatility. Again, we could turn this into a soup. I could add more broth and more vegetables and make it into a fantastic lentil soup. We also did the blenderizing process, and we could make it much creamier if we wanted to. All right, let's have some samples. And so do you still have, yeah, you have forks. I think the forks will work just fine with our goodies. Before we end, any questions that you have for me on the bolognese or the classic lentils and, of course, the Cacio de Pepe? Yes, so soy milk, or you could use any milk. I mean, again, you could use almond, and it didn't really make a big difference, when I look at the texture. So I think it's trying to hold true to the style of adding a milk that would help to break down the protein when you're making it with meat. And so it's a really nice option, but it's not obligatory, I think. This is the last of our Italian journey, and we are going to be jumping into another part of the Mediterranean. We're going to be going to Tunisia, and so we're going to be experimenting with some of the classic flavors of Tunisia, and so I'll be excited to hear what you think of that. We're going to have some beautiful colors and vegetables, and there'll be some meat dishes as well as some non-meat dishes. So next week it's going to be a slideshow. We're going to learn about Tunisia like we did Italy. We're going to learn about the characteristics of that country and kind of a history. You want to tell her? You'll see. Exactly. So it's just moving down the Mediterranean. And so it'll be really fun to see the influences that Tunisia has as we move around in the Mediterranean Sea. So next week, we're going to have a slideshow, not food. We're going to talk and learn about that culture. So I hope you'll join us, and hope you love your little treats of the lentils. It'll be here. Yes. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.